there were two content creators that were, in a way, kind of doing like really big events. And that was Cenat's Mafiathon 3, and that was IShowSpeed Does America. There were two of the Goliaths in the streaming space streaming not just big, but massive events at the same time. And if you look at it from an analytical sense, someone came out on top. Now, when I make this prediction about this next Super Bowl halftime show featuring Bad Bunny, he is headlining Super Bowl 60's halftime show. And I believe that Bad Bunny undoubtedly will have the highest viewed, most watched halftime show of all time. And I'm gonna make a prediction on the numbers because it seems obvious. With how big he is, I believe it's 100 and... Nationers, welcome back to another episode of The Realest Podcast, episode 84. Banner is right behind me, of course. Nationers, I want to let you guys know today, going to go through some updates. Going to go through some updates, at least in the channels, kind of what to expect from this podcast. And also, some things going on in the YouTube sphere, the Twitch sphere, the content creator sphere that I'm super excited about. But most importantly, I hope that you guys are having a great day. Hopefully, everything has been well in your life throughout this weekend or whenever you guys might be watching and tuning into this episode. Shout out to all of you guys who have listened on any episode up to this point. I do appreciate you guys because actually, it's kind of crazy that listeners is actually one of our bigger platforms. So thank you guys so much for tuning in from an auditorial standpoint. If you guys happen to be subscribed and do tune into the YouTube version that has a video that sees me in this podcast studio, thank you guys. And I hope that you guys, all of you, are having a swell start to your guys' week. As of right now, it is Saturday, the 4th of October, 2025. I mentioned last week, before we get into any of the topics of today's episode, last week I kind of mentioned there's going to be a few changes, at least in terms of this podcast, going to more a bi-weekly. So you'll see me on the first weekend of the month, and you'll see me on the third weekend of the month. And that kind of gives me some room to talk about some things that have gone on throughout those 2 weeks, because I found myself like scrounging around for some ideas. I'm like, what do I even talk about? Do I just like share a story? No. I want to talk about things that are going on in the world from a content creator standpoint, sports, just things that I'm finding interesting as of right now. And of course, if we do have a guest, they kind of intermingle themselves into those off weeks, so the second and fourth weeks of the month. And I'm super excited, guys. It's October. It's soup season. I've had so many bowls of soup this week. So many. It turned October and like bowls of soup just spawned in front of me. And I'm not complaining. I've been enjoying eating some soups. I had some chicken tortilla soup on Tuesday, which I guess technically that was still September. However, you know, I was celebrating us going into October, so I had chicken tortilla soup, and it's kind of weird because I never had chicken tortilla soup with like tortilla chips in it, but my mom's like, oh, like, just get me a little bowl, and can you get me some tortilla strips? And I was like, yeah, I could get you some. So my mom ends up having some, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try it as well. And so I try a few scoops, and I was addicted. I ate the entire soup with tortilla strips. I had a spoon in the bowl. It didn't matter. Just ate the entire soup with tortilla strips. So that was good. That's some things that have happened this week. I'm a little sick. My nose is stuffy. My nose is stuffy. Yesterday, I powered through, tried my best to at least be able to, which I kind of was able to stream and, you know, not really have to worry. I'm sick. I'm 24. I'm dying because of a stuffy nose. It's still a little stuffy. I've been able to sneeze. So I've been like looking at bright lights, which doesn't kind of help in this situation because there's a lot of bright lights. But I was able to sneeze a few times today, which is good. It still feels a little stuffy, especially my left nostril. I need to just get a little snot rocket and just go. I tried that once like a few years ago, and I was like, wow, that is a really effective way of like clearing your nose. You just got to just get some like extra power outside behind the snot. And it's kind of incredible how it works. I don't get the science or, you know, the logistics that, you know, is my nose, but it works. So if you have never done a snot rocket, you know, close one side and just go. It works. You're just like spitting out of your nose in essence. However, that's some things that have been going on this week. Me and my dad went golfing today, and that was a ton of fun. We did a little 9-hole golf. We didn't shoot as well as we did last time on the same course, which it happens. I shot 4 worse. My dad shot 1 worse, but I just had some really bad drives. I've been slicing it, I've been slicing it. I'm trying to work on the game. I want to get better because for myself, like I'm not doing sports right now. Golf is kind of like the really only true sport that I can do. So I've been like, you know what? Let's just spend some time doing golf. I've been working on my chipping. I've been working on getting my clubs down, and it has been very good. So I probably hit near like 100 balls today. So all of my strokes, I guess putters are kind of low impact, so my feet aren't really feeling a lot. But last time I golfed, oh man, I golfed. I went down for a wedding reception down like 2 hours south from Spokane, and my feet were cooked the next day. My feet were cooked. I don't know how they'll feel tomorrow. Of course, I don't know how they will feel tomorrow, but they feel a lot better today, so I'm not complaining. At least, I was able to, play some basketball outside. It kind of nagged it a little bit, so then I, went on a walk and just trying to get some steps in, and it's been good. So those are some things that have been going on this week. And my sister started a new job. She's working. She's in college, so she's been living it up over there in college, and it's been good. I hope that she's been enjoying it, and that's just kind of what's been going on for the week. It is nothing crazy, feeling solid. I did actually forget on Wednesday, we did a whole channel rebrand, at least from where content is to be found. Where can you catch me live? What type of direction is this channel going? And I just needed a place that I felt pretty solid in, at least creatively. And I'm like, what? I like what these people are doing. I think, it's worked for them. There's, proof, right? I think I could also add my own spin to it, kind of do my own thing with very similar tools. So live streaming, I'm live streaming on my main channel on YouTube. I'm also live on Twitch, which again, been on Twitch for quite some time, but then, TikTok as well, but not on my live channel. I'm now on my main channel. So all the live streaming is moved to more of the main essence. So it's not like separate from what I'm doing, because I'm doing a whole bunch of streaming anyways. That's, find a channel. I like Ludwig, Foozly, Virtual. These were channels that I looked at. Me and someone else, we had looked at this, and in essence, we were like, okay, what is the path? And the path was great, and I'm super excited to see how this path ends up going. It hasn't necessarily met my expectations at early weeks, but I think it does. It's going to kind of take time to kind of work myself back in to set algorithm. Obviously people watching, most people are watching on Twitch anyway, so it kind of isn't great on YouTube, but some people are still tuning in. Some people on Twitch also have the YouTube pulled up, so very grateful for that, and people, trying to help push the YouTube streams, because I think there's a lot of potential there, because YouTube does have a great search. People could just randomly find your stream, and if people are going to enjoy it in the way that they do, we love it. So very nice there. And so those are some things that have happened over the last week, and it's kind of crazy. It's been really fun. I've been really enjoying it. Trying to push through this little sickness. So we'll see how Monday goes. We'll see how Tuesday goes. We'll see. My body might have caught up to me in a way. I also feel like I had been meeting a few people, seeing people, and especially because I've been door dashing. So maybe someone got me sick. Maybe somebody got me sick. I'm not throwing out names. I'm not throwing out nothing. But there is water here, and it's cold water, and that's not going to help, but I need to lubricate the throat. When you wake up, right? You wake up and you take one swallow and you're like, yep, I'm cooked. The day is ruined. I have a sore throat. It's itchy. It's bad. My nose has been runny too, so it's been like the best of both worlds for both. However, speaking of best of both worlds, I want to get into some topics today that I think are groundbreaking work by two content creators that I don't know if we'll ever see something like it again. Now, what I mean is there has been 2 events going on in September. Now that September is obviously wrapped up, there were 2 content creators that were, in a way, kind of doing like really big events on 2 different platforms, or at least at, 2 different settings, right? And that was Kai Cenat's Mafiathon 3, and that was IShowSpeed Does America. There were 2 of the Goliaths in the streaming space streaming not just big, but massive events at the same time. And if you look at it from an analytical sense, someone came out on top. But how does that affect what the other had done? I want to get into it today because I think it's important to kind of note some groundbreaking things that have happened throughout this entire month of September. Now, like I mentioned, Kai Cenat was doing his Mafiathon 3, and Speed was doing his Speed Does America throughout basically the entire month of September and a few days before it. And this comes at a time because, think about it like album releases. Like when somebody massive, like Taylor Swift just released an album, you probably don't want to be dropping at the same time, especially if you are like someone like maybe like Tate McRae. Tate McRae drops an album. You kind of hope that it does go number 1 because of who you are. You are a massive mega pop star. You probably don't want to be competing with one of the biggest artists on the planet in Taylor Swift. So you're not dropping your album this week. You're not dropping your album for quite some time, because Taylor Swift's going to be clogging the number 1 spot for a good month. So what that leaves is, to find another date. But it does kind of make me ask questions. Why did 2 of the biggest names in streaming plan on doing events at the same time? Was it just because it was a good time? People are getting back into school? How does that work? Usually when people get back into school, like it's kind of the worst time, but maybe it is a good thing because it keeps people engaged into streaming. It keeps people engaged into content. And when we're looking in terms of these 2 massive streamers. Now, Kai Cenat just became, throughout his entire Mafiathon, he became the most followed person on Twitch, became the most subscribed to person concurrently on Twitch. He also, again, it's his 3rd time doing this, and Mafiathon 3 at one point kind of looked like a trilogy that was dying. Whereas Speed, someone that typically is inside or was for a certain part of his career, he decided to go outside and touch some grass. He, started doing a lot more IRL streams, and those IRL streams were massive across different countries, to China, to Germany, to just other parts of Europe. But now he's domestic. He's back in the motherland. He's back in the United States, and it just so happens that it coincides with another big streamer who is hosting now his 3rd major event. Now, there are some queries that do ring true throughout this entire month of September. Now, September did have Subtember, so subs are cheaper, which again, if you're Kai Cenat, that is a huge creative idea because he set out to be the most subscribed to person. He wanted 1 million subscribers, and if he did, LeBron Ramon James would cut his dreads. And if he broke his previous world record of 743,000, he would skydive. These are some crazy, crazy things to be able to do live. To do live? Now, don't get me wrong. I think both of these creators, Speed and Kai, are Goliath. They are Mount Rushmore-esque creators in their own field. Now, Kai Cenat doesn't do a whole lot of IRL streaming. He does very big moment type of streaming, right? Like a very event streaming. So take a concept. Let's have like Linkin Park, right? Linkin Park came on to his live stream, and while he was taking a shower, would perform. He would do this for other artists, DJs, other bands. That's like a clip. It's a moment, right? Like you want to be there for the moment when LeBron James cuts his dreads, right? You want to be there when this happens. You don't want to miss out on this big, big, big moment, right? Whereas Speed, his, again, is very big moment. His is very big clips. Like what happened when he went to Florida and was interviewing Tom Brady. His first leg, his first day was god-awful. Not from like a number standpoint, but from a production standpoint. You would hope that day one is when everything goes smooth. I understand a few bumps in the road along the way, but day one, it sets the tone. And here's the thing, day one is probably when most people are watching, because with what he was doing, live streaming on YouTube, live streaming on Twitch, 24/7, mind you, for 35 days straight, that's no easy feat. You're kind of having to be on. You're sleeping on a couch every single night. You're touring basically like a band or an artist would be, but you're live 24/7 visiting these cities, that city, everything. It's pretty nuts, right? It is pretty nuts to think that both of these creators were doing probably the biggest event that they have ever done at the exact same time. It is crazy to me that you are taking two massive creators, again, at the top of their game, 44 million subs for Speed, 19.8 million subscribers for Kai. Did I say 1,000 for Speed? 44 million, sorry. It is crazy. So just talking about some things that were going on throughout. Cenat, again, was a little bit more sit down. He had a few things that he would go out and go do, which, like, you know, fair to him. Like, it'd be a moment, right? He had Ed Sheeran on. He had the Jonas Brothers. He had people that, you know, what are they going to say? And mind you, it's a great marketing standpoint for them. You get to meet them personally. You get to have some fun. Like, I love the Little Dicky episode in both Mafiathon 2 and 3. You know, he had Victoria Justice. You know, he had Miranda Cosgrove on the other one, on the second one. And so when we're looking at what this was, and again, you have these things, and a lot of people were talking about it's the begathon, you know, and at times it did kind of feel like, man, like, is he just begging for subs? Like, does it look like that? I think to a point it was, okay? I think to a point when you're looking at the averages, right? If you want to hit 1 million at halfway of the month, so there's 30 days in September. So at day 15, you should be at 500K, theoretically. But here's the thing. You're going to get residual returns. So it's going to be less and less every time, or technically every day, because the most that people will probably subscribe to is the first week, right? And you're going to get less a second. You're going to get less the third. You're going to get less the fourth. That's what you would have thought. That was not the case. And mind you, I hopped in when they were doing power hours, and every sub was, you know, a certain time, and, you know, you would ask for a lot of subs, and that would kind of turn into, you know, the timer. The one crazy thing is that when I think we are getting closer, I say we, but like when Kai was getting closer to the, you know, 900K, you know, 700K, 800K, 900K, and even in 1 million, it was really starting to ramp up. It was kind of crazy, that effect. Like, were people like waiting? Were people holding on? It's nice that, you know, if you were to gift a certain amount, you spin a wheel, you could potentially, you know, be invited to Streamer University. You could potentially be invited to a lot of different things, right? So you could potentially win like a nice little signed PC by, like, you know, Benny Blanco, Selena Gomez. Like, these are cool things to have, right? Congratulations on the wedding, by the way. They got married. Super cool. But at a point, it did look like, man, like, it would kind of look bad on his image in a way, you know? Like, if the third one felt a little rushed, because even last year in November, he had the second one. Like, we're not even a year in. I don't know what the difference was between 1 and 2, but it felt like we just went through this 10 months ago, right? Like, it's crazy how much money people have, because people were given thousands of subs, hundreds of thousands of subs. Like, those are not cheap. You already had 1,000, that's already $5,000 plus, right? People had a lot of money. And you think about it, when this is also coming off the back of, like, when people, maybe not similar audiences, were donating for Team Water. MrBeast also seemed like they were off pace of 40 million. They would have to earn $1 million plus a day. And it kind of felt like they were off pace. Then they did the mega $12 million live stream, and they got over the hump, right? They had to ask some big hitters. They had to ask some people. I understand. You know, it kind of does look a little bad when you set out for a goal that you feel like is just enough, but you know that you're going to have to work your tail off to get there. And I think for Kai, that there might have been maybe a thought process. You have, 460, 470. Like, man, like the pace, like we're not hitting this thing. Like once we hit October 1st, we're losing a lot of subs. And so towards the end of it, I was really tuning in. I was really seeing like what was going on Twitter and whatever what Kai was posting. The skydiving. I was like, man, so we broke his record. We hit 800K, leading into the final few days. We hit 900K. I was there door dashing when he hit 1 million, which was crazy. That was like that's a super surreal moment. That's a super surreal moment to hit 1 million subs when like 500,000 was like crazy. 300,000 was crazy. The barriers that Kai had pushed throughout this Mafiathon 3 was nuts. I understand that maybe in the moment people were like, man, he's just begging for subs, another power hour. I thought we already used the 3 that we had. We have a 4th one coming in. But here's the thing. I think as a creator, someone that scale, the people that are only going to know that maybe the actions that were taken to get to 1 million are the ones that were there, the people that were there. But guess who's not going to know? Who's not going to know how things got on? Was the people that didn't watch are going to be like, wow, Kai Cenat hit 1 million subs, right? Like, wow, that's crazy. LeBron James is cutting his hair? That's nuts. Someone like my sister who probably didn't turn into these streams, right? Tune in, watch, enjoy maybe an interview here or there. But you know what she did do? Is she probably saw the post. I know she saw the post of when, he hit the 1 million mark. LeBron James was cutting his hair. Nobody really cared how you got to the end, as long as you got to the end. And to what integral part of the process, that looks, I think it is important to note. If he scammed people to hit 1 million, that's kind of a little different. I think there's also some thought of like, is the revenue going to like a Nigerian school? Is he planning on building things like this? Who knows, right? There's even a lot of talk, like even the one before wasn't even built, and that was 10 months ago. I mean, it takes time. I get that. But what happens if you lose all the money? Is the money like the one thing that you do appreciate from creators is transparency. Now, if we're talking about on the flip side, Speed, right? Speed, IShowSpeed started off his entire voyage. Cinematics coming in, looking like George Washington. He ends up on Tom Brady's. It's like live television. It's like a live documentary in a way. And it's kind of cool because you get to build these moments. And we see it, on Bleacher Report. We see it on Rap. We see it on Pubity. These are moments. And it's like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's kind of cool. There, however, is not the part where I'm like, man, I should tune in. I tuned in a few times to see what Speed was doing. I tuned in when he was in Chicago. I tuned in when he was in San Francisco. I tuned in. I didn't really care enough to watch and view. I got my own things that I got to do, right? I'm not really looking for entertainment at that current time. Like when I am free, I'm not tuning into much of these streams. I'm kind of checking occasionally to see what's happening, but I do kind of get my views from outer sources. And that is kind of the reality of clips, right? People are disseminating what you are doing because your stuff is that entertaining to entertain their audiences. And Speed, so again, 35 days, 24/7 rolling. Again, very different from what Kai was doing. Kai was doing bits. He was doing Mafia every night. He was doing, big events when he was taking a shower, interviews. He had like a whole native group. Whereas Speed is like going into cities. He's trying food. He's, interacting with people. He's racing them. He's meeting big celebrities. And it is nuts. Like, it is chaos. And the one cool thing is like very similar to what Ryan Trahan was doing. It's exciting to see what he's doing when he's there. So Ryan, when he came to Washington, stayed in the space station. That's like super cool. I'm like, wow, that is so cool. It's awesome to see what he's doing at each state. Mind you, it's all vlogs. It's recorded 4 days in advance. But the other side of it for Speed, it's live. It's live, right? You need a pretty intense security team. You need someone driving you throughout the night. And it can be a lot, right? You need to get to the next city when you can. And after that first day, it was a little rough. I saw clips of him kind of crashing out on his production team because things were laggy and like nobody let him know. You're asking Tom Brady to go to football, questions about his championships, and it's lagging, right? I would be pissed. This is the one moment you get to ask this on live. It's personal. You want that to be captured in a smooth setting and not one person's like, hey, hold on. There's lag. We're going to fix this and then you could continue, right? I'd be mad. But it was big. It was big moments. And again, these big moments on both sides. That first day is as unsmooth as it might have gone for Speed. He stuck through. It was tough. It seemed like I'd seen some clips that people had posted, and I mean, people are definitely getting their money from those clips, right? I understand that's kind of the point. But the other side of it that is kind of important to note is with the different style, you do get this kind of personal feel with Speed, whereas you don't really get that with Kai. You don't get like, you're like, wow, like I could go meet Kai out on the streets of Santa Monica, right? Whereas like Speed, you're like, wow, like there is kind of a lot of people that are watching that want to join in and be a part of it, that maybe want to race him because they want to be a part of it. They, could give him good content. And that is kind of the side that is a little different. Whereas like I could go out to the middle of Seattle and I could go see Speed, right? A larger than life character that is grounded and he's in my city. That's kind of crazy, right? Now, when we're, again, comparing that to what Kai did, it looked very different. Interviews in a mansion, like big ZTP, pan tilt, zoom, pan tilt, ZPT cameras, right? You could see all the cores. You could see everything larger than life, right? Again, a larger than life personality in these two different settings. And Speed, he was live streaming 24/7. He was live. I mean, I guess Kai was too. But he was also sleeping, had people reading donations. I get it. But traveling, doing all of that, having to interact with fans, right? That's already difficult enough. Whereas like when you're generally getting with like people that are PR trained, they're generally pretty, I guess, tame in a way. Whereas like people are like, Speed, Speed, Speed. It's like paparazzi, but like fandom. It's like One Direction fans back in the day, but like on the streets of Chicago. So Speed, he averaged, 100,000 on both. I think he averaged around 250, maybe in total. And maybe not average, but maybe peak. I'm not too sure if it's peak. It might have been peak that I looked up. However, that's still a lot of people. Like, I would understand if people are just like, there's nothing going on. He's just traveling. Like, yeah, tuning out for the night. I'll wake up and he's probably going to be up. And what does baffle me about what these guys are doing is that it was one at the same time, right? At the same time, both of these guys have some crazy event going on. So naturally, you're going to compare the two. Never once did I ever feel like they needed to be compared from what they're doing. Like they're both just doing it at the same time, right? They just are. And so who like comes out on top? Like, Kai reached this, Speed did this. I don't think there's like a beef there. I don't think that there is a sense of like feud going on. But what I think it does is I think it builds healthy competition. Who can do it better? You both set the bar. So who's going to set it next? And I think for Speed and I think for Kai, they're going tit for tat. They are. Now, don't get me wrong. What Kai did with 1 million subs is crazy. Is nuts. But the situation and the environment that Speed's putting himself while averaging live and being on 24/7, it might go underlooked and it might go overshadowed because of what Kai had done. There is a direct, you can tangibly look at a number and you could be like, yes, he hit 1.1 million subscribers. But then you look at Speed, you're like, wow, you kind of almost underappreciate like what he had gone through for a month. Through highs and lows, right? I mean, it was laggy, don't get me wrong. It was laggy during like a date that Kai did, It was laggy, like it, I was like, man, this looks a little rough. And I'm on like 1080p and it's a little laggy, right? And so I think it's important to note that there's not a feud here. But what there is healthy competition. I think there's a very healthy competition to be had between both of them. And I'm excited to see what they have next. I'm also excited for my, my channel rebrand, or at least kind of moving forward, because I'm like, man, this could be kind of cool. This is like, they set the bar. It's not that I need to beat the bar, or not that I need to reinvent the wheel, but I could take ideas from this and I can move forward with elements that they also did and make it kind of my own, right? Make it something that it feels special, make it feel like it is a moment, right? And so these things, as often as they do happen, big events, they're not happening like every weekend, but it's elements for me to kind of look into and I can learn from it, right? Because now that's the bar that needs to be set. And I absolutely love this idea of healthy competition, who could do it best. Both bars are being set, and I'm excited to see what is next for both of them. Now, I do want to get into some new things, but before I do forget, because I actually kind of wanted to incorporate this, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Speed and on Kai and both of the events that they did this month, because personally, I think both of them have set the bar. They're groundbreaking events, and what they did will be immortalized in the history of content for years to come. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Who do you think had the better event if you were able to tune into both? If you only tuned into one, let me know your thoughts on what that was. Now, speaking of events, last year I made a prediction that Kendrick Lamar would have the most viewed Super Bowl halftime show. Now, to the legitimacy of that, I don't know. It's hard to track data like that. 133.5 million people tuned in to Kendrick Lamar's halftime show. Okay? This game, it also comes when that game was kind of a blowout. It was 24-0 at half. And it still did 133 plus. But the one thing that, around that time when I was making that prediction, it did not feel obvious. Kendrick Lamar had been coming off a beef with Drake, and it was kind of iffy. People kind of want to know, is he going to kind of call out Drake in a way that's like very obvious, which we obviously know he did. However, with the game, Kendrick Lamar maybe not being as big as a name in certain ways to someone like Drake, how is he going to fare number-wise? I made the prediction, and I happen to be right. Now, when I make this prediction about this next Super Bowl halftime show featuring Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, mind you, is probably the biggest artist on the planet right now. That is probably true. He is headlining Super Bowl 60s. I believe it's Super Bowl 60s. Super Bowl 60s halftime show. And I believe that Bad Bunny undoubtedly will have the highest viewed, most watched halftime show of all time. And I'm going to make a prediction because that seems obvious, but I'm going to make a prediction, and I'm going to make a prediction on the numbers because it seems obvious with how big he is and everything. But I'm going to give a number. I believe it's 197 million viewers. 197, okay? People watching the Super Bowl halftime show. 197, just south of 200 million. That would be insane. Because mind you, a lot of Latin countries probably were not watching the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. But if there's an excuse to watch Bad Bunny perform for technically free, I imagine most people will probably tune in. And I imagine 197, I don't even know, that might even seem low. That might seem low. But mark it here, episode 84, 197 million. And it's not going to be close to number 2, which is Kendrick Lamar. Bad Bunny, like I mentioned, is announced as the halftime performer. And now, obviously, America, people are like, "Oh my goodness, he doesn't even speak English as his first language. Like, why is he the halftime show?" He's still an artist, right? I imagine Karol G's probably going to be part of it. He was a part of the Shakira J. Lo performance right before COVID. So we've kind of seen him on the stage. Kendrick Lamar is a part of the LA one, and he got his headline, and so it will be interesting to kind of see because Karol G did perform down in Brazil between the Chiefs and the Chargers, and that performance was great. Like, I'm sure a bunch of people tuned into it. I don't really have numbers on it, but Latin and Spanish predominant music is still very valid. You know, I would understand it'd be a little weird if like a German group, you know, was performing to the halftime show. I get that. And I guess I could kind of see the, you know, I guess America, English, all of that. I get it. But I think what's different is that like Spanish is at least kind of woven into music that we generally kind of listen to, even if it's not like music we prefer. You know, we probably heard like a Spanish speaking song. We probably heard, you know, songs growing up, you know, whether that is Shakira, whether that is, I guess J-Lo wasn't really making like Spanish speaking music, but, you know, Shakira was definitely a pioneer for sure. You know, I know a lot of 90s people know about Selena and music that she had made, and, you know, they fell in love with it. You know, California, it's also going to be performed in Levi Stadium in the Bay Area, which that's going to be huge. You know, California is going to go crazy. They might actually have an earthquake during the halftime show. So, all that to say, Bad Bunny's headlining. My thoughts on it, I love it. As a Mexican Spanish person, a Hispanic, that is, Hispanic, I love it. I like seeing different cultures kind of be involved, and like it's cool that like NFL games are going to like Ireland, they're going to the UK, they're going to Germany, they're going to Berlin. It's in Germany. But I just love that. I love that people can share different cultures. The one thing that I really hate and really dislike is that, you know, like when somebody, you know, is like, oh, they're culturally appropriating. Like, I love, you know, like, let's say it's like my white friend, right? And they put on a poncho and they, you know, have a sombrero, right? Like, it'd be cool, like, to see them be a part of the culture and, you know, go to like a quince and be a part of it, right? I love to see that, where you could intermingle these cultures. You know, I one thing that cultural appropriation for me kind of does is it gatekeeps people from experiencing other cultures. Now, I understand if you're doing it in a mocking way, I get that. Like, I could see the disdain for it, but at the end of the day, you understand that that is the culture. You know, you understand that like what you are doing is my culture. It's not for me to decide whether you can or can't. It is for me to decide if I'm offended or not, right? And I love this pick. I love Bad Bunny as an artist. I've been kind of getting into, I listened to his recent album where he's kind of riding a bull, and I really like a handful of songs on there. I think it's Mr. October I really like. Nadia Sabe is really good. There's a song, I forget how it goes every time. Ati, ati, ati. It goes something like that. I really like that song. I remember I was in Utah and I was like, I heard somebody blast it on the radio. I'm like, I really like the song. I'll remember it. So I started listening to like every Bad Bunny song. Could not find it. And then I found it and I've lost it again. So I need to find it again. But I really like this pick for the Super Bowl halftime show, partner with Rock Nation and the NFL. And I think, again, I would love to see a Metallica performance. I would love to. Metallica's been one of the biggest rock bands of all time, and they're still, like, performing. They're still, like, very much, I guess, in their prime, and I know a lot of people in America would listen to that. I know even a handful of, like, even Mexican people would listen to that. Spanish-speaking people would listen to that. Like, even people over internationally in Europe, like rock in itself does kind of transcend like a domestic border, international borders, that is. And so I love to see it. I get the backlash that, you know, I'm not going to be able to enjoy it because I don't speak Spanish, but granted, if you've probably ever heard a Spanish song and you don't understand it, you probably still kind of enjoyed it in a little way. So I'm excited for the halftime show. I think it's going to do numbers, but what are your thoughts? What do you think Bad Bunny is going to do number-wise for this halftime show? Is it going to be north of 200 mil? Is it going to be just shy? Or do you think it's going to do barely any better than what Kendrick Lamar did last year? Now, with that being said, just a few things to kind of note. This could be a shorter episode. We'll kind of end it off on a note here, but some topics. Snapchat. Kind of crazy what's going on with Snapchat in the big 2025. Still use Snapchat. I was the generation that kind of grew up on Snapchat, so it's still a way to kind of communicate with people very easily. You know, Instagram kind of seems a little like formal, or you have to kind of go hit a lot of buttons, where like Snapchat, I open up the app and I could go to a chat and I could see something, right? Whereas other apps, it's, you know, a roundabout way. But Snapchat is looking to potentially add a charge for storage if you have over 5 gigabytes of content saved in your memories, which is pretty interesting. I know iCloud kind of does that. I pay like $199 every month for it, which like Apple, you know, the reason why you are a mega corporation is because of the freaking iCloud storage. So got to do what you got to do. On top of that, not too happy about that, I guess. I don't know how much I have in storage. Like, I just don't know. I really don't. But if it's going to be something that where I'm going to have to look through my memories and start deleting things, it's probably going to be a no-go. But here's the thing. I'm probably then going to have to pay. I probably am. So the unfortunate part, Snapchat in the big 2025 might find its way out of some people's, storage on their phone, whether that is with in-app or just deleting Snapchat as a whole. But Snapchat's still very big. I know there's a lot of this generation growing up now through high school and even, middle school that are like, what the hell is Snapchat? Like, who the frick uses Snapchat? I'm like, hey, buddy, okay? There are people that grew up on this. It's like using MySpace. Like, who uses MySpace? I grew up with MySpace. I didn't have a MySpace account. I was like a year late. But in general, a lot of people don't use Snapchat nowadays, which is kind of weird because like Snapchat's still a good way to like communicate. Probably the easiest way to communicate with people. So with that being said, something interesting that an airline is doing is Delta Airlines is adding MrBeast videos to their flight log. And not flight log as in like, oh, I'm taking a trip from Utah to Spokane or whatever, like, not like flight logs like that, but to their entertainment systems. Now, most Delta Airlines have a entertainment device on the back headrest of the person sitting in front of you. And, I've watched movies on there. I've watched Oppenheimer. I watched Pitch Perfect on there. I've watched like a triathlon documentary called Breaking 10. But the weird thing is, kind of funny enough, the Oppenheimer, there's a sex scene in there and it like popped up and I was like, that would have been nice to know. Like there's like people. What about if a kid sitting next to me and like, oh my gosh, Florence Pugh's boobs are on the screen. Sorry. Christopher Nolan had a different direction for this movie. Understandably so. I'm sure it happened. However, MrBeast, a YouTube creator, somebody that makes videos. I understand, like, some people do have a separate third party. Like, Dude Perfect has, like, an app. A YouTube Kids also has certain videos on there. And with this, Delta Airlines, I guess, is kind of adding that same feature where you could probably watch a MrBeast video. You could watch almost somebody risk their life and die for $50,000. No, $500,000. You could watch an ex-couple get cuffed. Or sorry, I don't know how to word things right now, but get locked into a room for like 30 days. That's kind of unique. And so I'm sure that there will be some videos that don't generally go on there. Like maybe the Ancient Temple one goes on. Maybe like the job one where it's kind of like increasing in value or just things like that, or like challenging professional athletes. I could see these things kind of marinate into the entertainment system because like, I guess, yeah, MrBeast also makes content for kids, but maybe, hey, I missed the new MrBeast video that just dropped this Saturday, and I want to watch it. I'm taking a flight. I could watch it. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe I'll let you know. If I ever take a Delta flight, I typically fly Delta. So if I do take a flight on Delta and I see a MrBeast video on there, I will send a video in the Discord. I'll send a video on Instagram, maybe even Snapchat too. That'll be pretty interesting, but that is pretty much everything that's been going on this week, everything that I've been excited about. It's very interesting to see some of these topics kind of come to fruition. How are they going to implement themselves? And let me know down in the comment section, what are your thoughts on any of the news and any of the major events that I talked about in today's episode 84 of The Realest Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening in, whether that is video on YouTube or audio on any streaming platform. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in to The Realest Podcast. And again, I will see you guys in 2 weeks. So, with that being said, have a great rest of your week and next week. And I'll see you guys soon. 07 and peace. Peace.